Hello and welcome to the Pitt Post-Game Show. Chris Carter here with Noah Hiles. The Pitt Panthers have come in and gotten a huge win, 74-63 over number 21 Virginia. They have beaten two ranked road ACC teams now. That's 6 of their last 7. It's also a remarkable win. It's the first time since 23 games ago that Virginia has lost at home. A huge effort across the board for the Panthers, and a win that I think, Noah, gets them back in some NCAA tournament talks.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we're going to talk about, we do our good, bad, and ugly. And Carter, you look at their wins throughout this streak, which is now 6 of their last 7. There have been games where they came out slow and they needed a second half. There have been other games where they came out red hot and were just hanging on until the end. They were the better team for 40 minutes.
They were
here. And while, yes, there were counter punches for Virginia, there were even some runs that allowed Virginia to hold a brief lead here. We don't have it right here. We have it on the stat sheet online that we can look up after this, which doesn't help us for the show. But Pitt led for the bulk of this contest, and they were the better team today. So, Carter, let's get into it. What's your good?
First good is Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh.
That's the great.
That's the great. That's absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike's Beer Bar, over 500 different available beers. 300 of those beers are local. 80 of those local beers available on tap. Pitt fans probably enjoying quite a few of them tonight. Watching that.
Happy beers.
Happy beers indeed. But my good is the off-ball movement we saw on offense from Pitt. And this was something that didn't necessarily always happen for Pitt. When they get in trouble with their guards, people would not come and help. I love the term that Jeff Capel gave us after the game. He called them greedy receivers, fighting through the defense, being aggressive, and going and demanding the ball from the person who was in trouble. And oftentimes, Virginia, they were pressuring. Virginia, this is a Tony Bennett defense. Tony Bennett defenses always are gritty. They usually hold opponents to less than 60, and they hadn't allowed an opponent to score 74 points in a game like Pitt had since November of 2021 at home here in Virginia. So them being able to do that opened up so many other parts of the offense. And that way, when they broke the pressure that Virginia brings with solid defense, then all of a sudden the ball movement kept flowing and it kept life in the ball for the Panthers offense. That's why the off-ball movement is my good.
Yeah, just want to point out some numbers. Virginia came into this game the number 2 defense in the country, allowing 57.7 points a game. The only team better than them defensively, Carter, is Houston. And it just feels like every year those are the 2 teams, right? Virginia and Houston, they're the top 2 defensive teams. And Pitt had no problems. They shot well above 40% from the floor and from 3 today. That was a big thing. The first half, especially, I tweeted this out. They said it on the broadcast. Coming into today, the highest first half scoring total by an ACC team in this building was 24 points by Syracuse. Pitt finished with 36. For reference, just 8 days ago, Miami scored 38 points in the whole game against Virginia. It was just a lights out effort. So that's a great good. And off-ball movement had a lot to do with that. My good is another factor that had a lot to do with it. His name is Blake Hinson. 27 points for Blake, 5 triples.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, and I don't know if this was the case last year. There were some games in the regular season where he really showed out. But I feel like in the bigger games, he hit some big shots, but it was Jamarius Burton.
Yeah.
It was Nelly Cummings.
Yes.
Those were their big game performers. That's his job this year. He even said so. I'm just doing my job. And man, after the Duke game, which was we're coming up on a month here next week, where he was 7 of 7 from 3, stood on the scorers table. Just another excellent performance today. 27 points. He came out guns a-blazing too. He took their first 3 shots, and he was efficient. 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
He was the best player on the floor today, and he's a big reason why they won.
And I thought a great thing that he said after the game, we are asking him about the contributions to the rest of his team in the tough moments, like when Virginia is going on a run and he's getting answers from other players. One thing he says is, hey, them being great in their moment allows me to be great in what I do without having to go outside the game plan.
Yeah.
Great leader right now in Blake Hinson.
You're not Blake, you're Carter.
Yes. It's all right. It's a long night.
It has been. We've driving a lot.
Yes,
yeah. All right.
indeed.
So, all right. What's your bad, Carter?
My bad is Federico in the second half again. And this was after what was a really good first half for him. And this is just his inconsistency has to be maddening at times, man. Like in the first half, and Jeff Capel talked about it, he had these 2 blocks that were momentous. The first one just sent the ball into the seats. The second one was after a half-court steal. The entire crowd is ready to get into it. They're getting a dunk. Nope. Federico sends the ball into the seats. Then in the second half, turnover, misses a shot at the rim, or just a dunk. He could have just put it down, and he just gets out-muscled at the rim, then just plays poorly on defense, and Jeff Capel sits him 6 minutes into the second half. They're fortunate that Guillermo Diaz-Graham came in and played well the rest of the game, much like how William Jeffress did against Wake Forest, but that is going to come back to bite this team at some point when if Federico can't figure out how to just be consistent.
Yes, I completely agree, and we both noticed he was really good in the first half.
He was really good in the first half. I don't understand.
And that's still a problem.
Yes,
it's still a problem. My bad is something I want to highlight. There were bad stretches for Pitt in this game.
Yeah.
But I think this isn't a negative thing to talk about though, because every time there was a bad stretch, Jeff always talks about it's a game of runs. It's 10 rounds. I thought Jeff's coaching was excellent today, especially with his timeout management. And the 2 big stretches where Pitt went cold, they took timeouts, and the game changed instantly. The first one was in the final media break. They allow a 6-0 run. In the first half, I should say, the final media break. In the last 4 minutes, that stretch where they've really kind of been inconsistent, if not actually consistent in a bad way all year. And it's starting to fall apart. And I tweeted, I said, you cannot allow this team, which was won 23 in a row in this building, to go into that locker room with momentum. You're not going to survive.
I agree.
And Jeff takes a timeout in the final minute. What results is a 5-0 run with Ishmael Leggett getting a big steal and drawing a foul for 2 free throws. And I think Jaden Lowe had the 3-pointer. And Pitt goes up into the locker room with a lead. And that's big. And they keep the momentum on their side. And then in the second half, Henson hits a 3. They miss some shots. Virginia goes on a 9-0 run. Capel takes another timeout. How does Pitt respond? It hits 8 of its next 10 shots. It gets the lead, and it never surrenders it again. So there were bad stretches. You're going to have bad stretches. Everyone who watches college basketball understands, when you're winning games in the tournament, you got to have a team that's able to withstand not making a basket for 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's been the Achilles heel for this team, where they'll have that, and they're not able to overcome that sometimes. They're able to overcome that now. There were cold stretches. There were opposing runs. But for every punch, Pitt had a counterpunch.
Yeah.
And as the game went on, Virginia did not have a counterpunch. It did not have an answer for Blake Hinson. It did not have counterpunches for its rim protection and the shot blocking abilities that we saw from Fetty and Guillermo. It did not have a counterpunch for Jalen Lowe. Its backcourt was the better backcourt in the final 10 minutes.
It was.
So,
Virginia only had 1 assist in the final 10 minutes.
Unbelievable. They didn't turn the ball over because they don't do that. I don't think that's allowed in this state, especially in this county. But just a tremendous effort. Carter, what's your ugly?
My ugly is less about this game and more about what I've covered this is like my 4th season covering Pitt basketball, and I have seen so many games against Virginia that were just doggone ugly. That were just, and it wasn't that Virginia was doing anything bad. It was just Virginia's defense can be so stifling that it turns everything into a rock fight. And I've seen so many Pitt teams go out, and Pitt teams that had been red hot, and they just get ice cold because Virginia locks them up, forces them to win ISO, and that's the only way they're going to play offense. But that didn't happen in this game, and that's what's really impressive about this Pitt team is this is a good Virginia defense. I don't care what the bracketology says, this Virginia team still needs to be in the tournament and not a last four. It's going to be. And not a last four in a legitimate, at-large bid or, whatever they're going to get. Virginia is a very good team and a very good defense. And this Pitt team was not fazed by it. No. And that is what is most impressive about this win is you're talking about a Pitt basketball team that with 2 freshman guards, with a limited amount of guys who can really come in and give you extra minutes. They found ways to get answers time and time again in this game, despite all the different things that Virginia did. And Tony Bennett even said after the game, he's like, "Look, we tried several different things to limit their screens, to limit what they like to do, and they kept finding answers." And he was like, "All credit goes to those guys for what they did." So the ugly is how it used to be against Virginia, but it was not ugly tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, Carter. I mean, this was a team that was on the wrong side of the bubble a month ago.
Yep.
Then won 8 straight. Now it entered this week as a projected 9 seed.
Yeah.
I think it'll probably finish higher than that. I see this team probably at worst in the
Talking about
semifinal.
Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia. And now you look at what Pitt's doing, and I think it has a similar opportunity where it's going to be with Louisville on the schedule Saturday, assuming nothing goes drastically wrong. That's 7 wins in 8 contests, and you got some big games heading into the back end of February now. But Pitt's going to be in the mix, and my ugly is just looking back at a month ago. We thought we were crazy after watching the first couple of weeks, and then seeing this team lose to Missouri, to Syracuse twice, even to Florida. Honestly, even though Florida's probably going to be a tournament team. We thought, we were like, wow. Like, I remember thinking personally, like, how bad was my evaluation of these guards, of what this team can do? But it turns out it's not as bad as I thought, because they just hadn't figured it out yet against real competition. And just looking back at a month ago with those ugly losses, this shouldn't have happened.
Right.
And there were points in the season where we thought maybe they should have, but no, it's clear that this team played down to its competition, and it's going to have to answer for those losses. But it needed to happen in order for it to find its footing as a squad. But those losses look ugly now because we know this is actually a good team.
Right. And I think the part of it is that the needing to happen part. This was a young team.
Right.
Bub Carrington, J-Lo, and even Ishmael Leggett, who's a junior, but this was his first Power 5 action that he's gotten in his college ball. They needed to learn what it took to get through a grueling ACC schedule. And that, to me, is what's impressive about this group, is that they have figured it out. And at this stage, with 7 games left, they are in a position where if they perform well, I think win 5 of those last 7, and it's crazy. With 10 games out, I said they can only lose like 2 more games unless they go on a crazy tournament run. And here we are, 7 games left, and it's still that 2 loss mark that they haven't lost one yet. It's truly impressive. A shout out to a legendary journalist, David Teal, who we were talking with after the game, and he was mentioning, like, look, Virginia didn't play bad. They shot 50%. They played well in this game, and they got their butts handed to them. It's like, that doesn't happen
in this building.
Yeah,
no.
Kudos to Pitt.
Yeah, kudos to Pitt. It's going to be an interesting run.
Very interesting,
Carter. I mean, you look, Clemson is a tournament team. That's coming up on the road in 2 weeks. Next week, this team's in Winston-Salem. This morning, Wake Forest was the last team out.
Yeah.
So, honestly,
and didn't they just beat North Carolina?
No,
I'm mixing up. Sorry.
Yeah, that was Clemson who beat.
That was Clemson.
Yes.
Never mind.
But we watch too much basketball.
We watch way too much.
But yes, so it's. I think this win's not only good for Pitt. I think it's good for the ACC.
Yes.
It's gonna. We're gonna see a lot of fun basketball here.
I think so. Not
just from Pitt, but through the rest of this conference as we wrap up the regular season. Carter, any final thoughts from you?
From John Paul Jones Arena, Chris Carter and Noah Hiles of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you again next time, Saturday night, as Pitt takes on the Louisville Cardinals from the Peterson Events Center.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.